Hey.
Thank you so much for letting Military Makeover, I think, honor you and your family this way. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. No, this has been, I know it's been tough, especially this last year, having survived Hurricane Michael and what it's done to your home. But you know what? For us at Military Makeover to be able to give this gift to a Gold Star widow, you don't know how much it's touched the heart of every single one of our crew members, everybody.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And you notice how the community's turned out, right? The EOD community has been here.
They're always around, so
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
Well, maybe we should slow down a little bit and make sure people understand why they're around. I mean, your husband, Sergeant Dan Patron, how long did you guys know each other before he deployed?
I would say a year before he deployed.
Really? You got married, you were married 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
When he was deployed? That's kind of crazy. You never met him before?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
So, when you met him, was he an EOD tech then, or was he had already transitioned over?
He was an EOD tech.
He was an EOD tech. So what went through your mind? I'm getting ready to get involved with a guy who works with bombs.
I didn't really know what EOD was at first until I started hanging around him more and his friends and finally learned exactly what he did.
And I mean, for people at home, make us understand how you felt when he got orders to go and do what he was trained to do.
You never really can prepare for that. It's absolutely heart-wrenching because you don't know.
Right. I mean, I know a lot of people at home may have seen the movie, Hurt Locker, and though that was an action-filled movie and it kind of reached into the psyche of the EOD member himself, it didn't cover the family of an EOD person.
Right, right.
And being married to a guy that is less than a second away from tragedy at any given moment. How did that make you feel? Especially when he got his orders in hand, baby, I gotta go.
Yeah, so he extended. He actually decided to extend to be able to go on this deployment. And, you just, like I said, you don't prepare for it. You just gotta go with the flow.
So he's over for a year. Hey, and did you know Johnny and his wife?
Not really before the deployment. I kind of knew who they were. Once we found out Johnny was going to be Dan's teammate, I started talking to his wife more, and we just kind of connected and stayed connected through the deployment.
So for a full year, you and Natalie had some conversations on a regular basis, right?
Yes.
And, what would those conversations be like?
We would just ask each other if we heard from the other one's spouse, what was going on, where they were, because they really can't tell us, so.
Right. And, should I say, what was on a scale of 1 to 10, what was the worry level?
A 10, definitely.
The whole time?
The whole time.
It had to be earth-shattering when you got the information that Johnny had an accident.
Yes, very much.
How did you get the information?
I want to say I received a phone call, or I want to say Dan sent me an email. But it was a rough time, definitely for Natalie and definitely for Dan as well.
Of course, you reached out to Natalie, of course.
Of course.
And I mean, when you found out some of the details about the fact that Dan had really done everything possible to help save Johnny's life, how did that make you feel? Because you had to be proud.
I'm always proud.
Really? I mean, but then at the same time, you're proud that your husband was able to save his partner's life. And so those that don't understand that 2 weeks prior to Danny's accident, about 2.5 weeks prior to Danny's accident, his team member, who's Johnny Morris, is another sergeant, and one of the best guys in the division, right? These guys were put together because they were so skilled.
Right.
Unfortunately, it was such just a hard and scary operation that they were on, it happened to him. And when they had found 6 IEDs on a farm, and the 7th one, Johnny stepped on.
Right.
And for those at home, you understand that Dan ended up applying tourniquets to both of his legs, literally tried to stop the bleeding in his abdominal wound, and then picked Johnny up and carried him. And carried him and kept him safe until he was, actually, Medevac'd out, right?
Right, he held his hand the whole time.
The whole time. What was the last thing, I think I remember, what was the last thing that Dan said to Johnny?
I love you, man. That's exactly what he said.
Absolutely. Yeah. You were able to share that with Natalie, right?
I did.
Yeah. And I know, for that happened, it had to be nuts for you.
Yes, worry.
Wow, and Johnny, how are you?
It's good to see you.
Man.
Nice to meet you.
Good. We were just talking about you, my friend.
Yeah.
Talking about you, because, I was just literally asking Cody, how she helped to comfort your wife and the two of you weren't even married then.
Not yet, right? That's right.
Let's talk a little bit about it. This is Danny Morris, who was Johnny's teammate, right? And you guys, is that what they called him?
Yes, sir. We were teammates.
Teammates. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the two of you were on, a call to go and help remove IEDs from a farmer's property, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. He came up and he'd found them with his tractor. How he didn't blow himself up, I have no idea, but he came and we hadn't been very busy, so Dan was like, yeah, we need to go. And he was always, hey man, we need to do something. We gotta get going. So we went out and we got there and found.
We should say, but before you went out now, a lot of times you guys would get calls like this claiming that there were IEDs found, and that would have been an ambush, right?
Yes, sir. That was kind of our worry to begin with was, we got this, and it's way out by the river, and nobody really lives out there. Can you come out and help us? So we were like, yeah, we can. We'll be there at noon, and we showed up around 3. So they gives them a little time to soak in the sun and think about what they're doing.
Sure. But you went out, and I guess during that period of time, you would identify where each one of the IEDs was, and then you would explode them.
Well, usually what would happen is we would find everything in the small area that we were working. If you look there where we were in Sangin in 2011, if you looked hard enough, you could find as many as you wanted to. It was more of we need to clear where the Marines are gonna be working, and then everything else was just kind of leave it. If you found something, you would take care of it, but we didn't really go looking for IEDs, because everyone you walk up to could be the last one you work on.
Sure.
So it wasn't about numbers or anything like that for us. It was more keeping the Marines that were there that had a job. They went around and made sure that the people were safe. We just cleared the IEDs that would help them do that.
Right.
So it wasn't, and then whatever the people would come and ask us to take out, that's what we would do.
And that was part of, making sure relationships with the people were good, right?
Yes, sir.
So you were out there working. You had both collectively identified 6 of them, right?
Yes, sir. Found 6. Well, I had the easy job that day. He'd found 3 initially, and I was just kind of marking them and making sure that they weren't really a hazard anymore. And then we have to do reports. So I was getting the grid coordinates and had to take all these pictures, and it's a big ordeal to do a report. So I was doing that, and Dan was off, hunting.
Hunting more.
Exactly. So it was always about, we need to take as many out as we can since we're here.
Right.
So he found 3 more, and I said, look, we'll just dig down next to them, and we'll countercharge everything, and then blow them all up at once and get out of here.
Gotcha.
We've been out there for too long anyway, and So we were doing that, and we didn't have enough det cords, like explosive rope, to go all the way from one end to the other. And when you can, you try to reduce the amount of separate shots you make, because if one doesn't work, then you got to wait around and then go back and deal with that, and that's another explosive hazard.
Right.
So we wanted to get rid of everything at once, and we didn't have enough det cord. So I was walking over to the squad leader to ask him, hey, he said, hey, I got det cord, you guys come over and we'll give it to you. So I was walking over to him and just
Stepped on one.
missed lucky number 7. And as soon as I hit the ground,
And let's say this thing blew you into the air,
yeah, like
ripped through both legs.
it tore both legs up pretty well. The left one, my left boot, when I was flying through the air, I could see it was gone. So I was like, well, I got to do some pretty serious work as soon as I hit the ground. And when I hit, I was kind of pinned in the shot hole and couldn't really get to my tourniquets. They were up high. And
At that moment, did you realize that the IED had actually exploded the ammunition in your rifle?
I didn't realize it at the time because my plates and all my gear, we wear all that stuff. And my rifle was kind of stuck between my legs. And when Dan got over to me, he was, initially you try to treat the first, whatever's the worst to you wound, whatever's bleeding the worst, we need to get rid of that, or fix it as fast as we can. So he put a tourniquet on my left leg, and my right leg, I lost about 6 inches of my thigh muscle. And he was like, your stomach is open. So I'm bleeding from everywhere. And he's like, you're gonna be all right. I already got the left one is good, and your stomach is not bleeding that bad. And I was like, why is my stomach bleeding? And he said, well, your rifle magazine exploded. So, I'm thinking about that. And, I never worried that I was gonna die. We did a lot of training together, and I'd seen him, one of his Bronze Star is written up about a guy that we saved. And I'd seen him work. I know he's cool as a cucumber, always was. And I wasn't worried about dying. I was more worried about leaving him. And that is really what bothers me still, leaving him. He did everything he could to, make sure that I got home.
Carried you to safety and stayed there with you
Sure
until the
did.
back ride.
Sure did. The Brits showed up to pick me up, and he carried me onto the helicopter, and last thing he ever said to me face to face was, I love you, man. And
But it then had to seem crazy that you were still in the hospital, right? 2 weeks later.
yeah, it was August the 6th. I got injured July the 2nd, so it was about 3 or 4 weeks.
So you were back home helping to keep Natalie, his wife, or future wife, at least help keep her in a state where she could continue on.
Right.
And then you hear what happens on August 6th. And how did you find out?
The Marine Corps had some guys show up at my door around 7 in the morning.
Did you see him walking up to the door, or did you just hear the knock?
I heard the knock, so I looked out the kitchen window and I saw them standing there in uniform, and it didn't cross my mind. I was like, what are they doing here? Maybe they got the wrong house. And then I opened the door, and the look on their face, I just knew.
You know. Mm-hmm. And they told you that Danny was trying to disarm another one, right?
Yeah, they told me that Danny was killed.
And I know Natalie then called you, right? After the guys in uniform told you she was the next person you talked to, right?
I believe so.
2 weeks earlier, you were doing the same thing for her.
Yeah, it's still all a blur because it just happened so fast. So.
And when you think back at it now, I mean, it's 2011, and here we are in 2019, and you know, people at home don't understand how much a spouse goes through just coping with that kind of information.
Right. You think about it every day. I still think about it every day.
You guys still have a very special bond, I'm sure. Right?
I feel anytime I see Dan's teammates or his friends or anybody that was with him, I feel closer to him. I'm just happy.
Absolutely, absolutely. And now, I mean, did you both get to see his brother's movie that he made?
Yeah,
for him?
I went to the premiere. We sat in the theater and watched it. So.
And that was a movie that was, I should say, that Dan's brother,
Matt.
Okay. Dan's brother, Matt, literally did a movie that was to remember Dan in a way to help people remember the man, not just what happened at the end, right?
Right.
I guess in his hometown they've named a street after him. That's gotta make you feel good. What would you say to another Gold Star widow out there right now who has been just really racking their brain as to what they could have done to stop this from happening?
You know, it's something that I can say you never forget. And people say as time goes on, it gets easier. I won't say it gets easier, but you learn to keep pushing forward. And you just learn to keep living life.
So you go 8 years, and then the mother of all hurricanes smashes in here. Category 5 hurricane smashes in. Damaged your house pretty badly, did it not?
Pretty bad.
When you found out that Military Makeover had selected you to get a little makeover, what did you think?
I was shocked, actually. It's something you don't think will happen to you.
Mm-hmm. What are you looking forward to the most?
My daughter's room.
Your daughter's room?
Mm-hmm. Yes. She starts school in August, so I'm super excited for her.
And I know, you know, she's not Danny's child, but you gotta talk to her from time to time and tell her about him, do you?
She knows everything about Dan.
Mm-hmm. And I bet she probably wished she got a chance to know him.
She does. And she sees pictures of him and she'll send balloons to him in the sky. She knows that Dan is her angel.
For you, Johnny, you get to stay kind of connected to Dan through, right?
Through Cody and Kathy and Matt.
Everyone.
We our community is a huge family. We have every year we have the memorial, so it's kind of a celebration of, not really a celebration, I should say. It's more memorial to the guys that either have been killed in action in a theater of war today, or remains that were located, you know, from past wars. The guys that were missing and they found their remains, they put them on the wall as well. But every year we all get to see each other. You know, the families still show up, and it's really like, I mean, it's a real.
It's a remembrance weekend.
Yeah. You know, everybody just tells stories, and it's like we were, you know, everybody's sitting around with the people they're talking about, because everyone remembers the same things, you know.
But it's hard for people at home to kind of understand how heavy that weight can be on you. I mean, I'm sure you're reminded every single day of what happened to you. And I've been saying on the show for now months that, you know, thank you for your service isn't enough. I mean, I appreciate the fact that somebody will say those words, but I've been in the airport and watched a person see a soldier go by and say, thank you for your service, and don't even look back to wait and hear an answer. It's kind of like this cliche saying. But maybe you ought to let people know, and I think it's because they've kind of forgotten how you feel. I mean, this is what now? This has been 9 years since you gave a part of yourself and left it on the battlefield for us. How heavy is that burden on you?
I really don't even know how to answer that. I mean, I just think about guys like Dan.
Right.
You know, what I left, it's kind of just a numbers game. You know, when you do it as much as we did, you have to be right every time. And
But you go on.
you have to. I mean, I have kids. I have a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old. You have a 5-year-old.
Both children born after the accident.
Yes, sir.
And I wish Natalie was here, but, you know, I mean, it takes a really strong woman to continue a relationship with a man that's been injured like yourself,
Yes, sir.
and to go ahead and marry him.
To see everything that happened, you know, she was 4 months pregnant with our son when I got injured, so she was, you know, there 2 days after I was injured, and every surgery she was waiting on me when I got out of there, and, you know, dealing with me trying to learn how to walk again, and she's a super strong lady.
Super strong, right?
I don't know what I'd do.
You're a
without her.
super strong mom there, too.
I try.
Definitely.
That's all I can be.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for letting us know and reminding us, you know, how special Gold Star families are, and how special soldiers like you are, sir. I can't say enough, but thank you for your service. Isn't enough, but thank you.
Thank you.